Welcome to our Saturday simulcast. After Purdue's 39-35 loss at the hands of Fresno State, three of my best friends are with me because I don't have many friends, but I've got these guys. Maybe, I don't know. Mike Carmin, Tom Dienhart, Brian Neubert. I'm Alan Karpick, and we are the gang at goldenblack.com. I want to thank the Union Club Hotel for its sponsorship of this. It was a full house at the Union, certainly this weekend, and we appreciate them. Want to also remind folks that we have a website, and if you like this, make sure you think about subscribing to goldenblack.com. Some specials still going on that would intrigue you, and you can watch us on YouTube, but we're even better. These guys are even better in the written word. So
we'll give you Mike Carmin's cell phone number even.
Yeah, there you go. You can do that. All right, Mr. Dienhart, I'm going to start with you. I guess certainly a disappointing loss. It's a long season. We all talked about this being a game Purdue needed. But now with the lens of 3 hours, put it in perspective that, Purdue did not get the job done. Struggled defensively, struggled offensively, really, to be quite honest, in my view. But what say you about what we saw in Ross-Ade Stadium?
Well, I lost my bet with Mike and I had to shave my head.
There you go.
Was I surprised Purdue got beat? No. I think we talked about the point spread went from like 6 to I think 3.5 or 3 when the game kicked off. We all knew about the savvy of their head coach, Jeff Tedford. We knew the reputation of their program. And Purdue certainly respected Fresno State. And, it happened, right? And it happened. Fresno State found a way to win a game. And I think most of us thought it was going to come down to the fourth quarter, and it did just that. And, Alan, you hit the nail on the head. It's funny. If you just look at the final score, you'd say, man, 35 points. That should be enough to win any ball game, right? Even those 35 points were a little bit of a mirage, really, when you think about it. One of those touchdowns came on a kickoff return. Another one was set up on a 25-yard punt return and got Purdue to the 17-yard line. It still took them like 8 plays to cover 17 yards to finally punch it in there as well. And the first touchdown of the game was, I think, a 3-5, and that was just a great play by Deion Burke. It's not like the offense had any real sustained success there. You still got to give him credit, though, I guess. But I think, Alan, the real story was the defense and just the issues they had. I think the biggest one, guys, I'd like to hear what you think, but in my mind, they couldn't get off the field on third down. Fresno was 11 of 17 on third down. They ran, I believe, 80 plays to produce 62. And, time and again on third down, Fresno found a way to move the chains. And we saw it on the game-winning drive, too. So, it's just that defense. They've got a lot of things they've got to get buttoned up, obviously, especially on the back end.
Brian, we talked before we started here briefly about how Fresno was pretty good, too. This was a good football team. And to me, it looked like clearly the better team won. Now, Purdue had a chance to win this football game without question. But looking at that, your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I don't want to even suggest Fresno State's better than Purdue. I think it was pretty even. I think this game came down to third downs. If Purdue's offense makes a few more, if they just stop one of those fourth and longs, this could have gone either way. I said to somebody after the game that last possession for Purdue in the first half, when I know they lost by more than 3 points, but if they just get yards on first down, who knows how this game turns out, because you might have been able to do something there, at least keep the ball away from Fresno State so they don't kick that 52-yarder. It just came down to third downs both ways, and that's obviously the underscoring the constant that is the importance of third down in football. But I think that one thing you have to give Fresno State credit for was, yes, 2 of those third and long conversions were missed tackles. One of them was Cam Allen. One of them was Dylan Thieneman. Part of that is just making sure I use the right Thieneman name. Yeah, I did.
Dylan, you got it.
That's going to happen sometimes when you put your defensive backs out on islands one-on-one. And Purdue did that a lot in its secondary. That's I think they're going to play a lot of man. And when you play a lot of man, I didn't think, there were a couple busts here and there, but I thought for the most part, Purdue was, there were a lot of throws where Purdue was right on the guy's back. And the quarterback just put it in there. And that's the definition of good offense beating good defense, and the nature of playing man defense, and why so many coaches, tend to prefer zone, because there are just kind of more people in the general vicinity of the football, and you don't get beat if they make a perfect throw. And that kid from Fresno State, Mikey, whatever his name is, Keen, made a lot of damn good throws.
Yeah, he did.
I also think you have to give Jeff Tedford and them credit. They schemed some really good offense too against what they ended up seeing from Purdue, and they didn't have any tape on Ryan Walters and them at Purdue. I don't know if they went back and watched Illinois or whatever, but that one touchdown they threw to Jalen Gill was really good offense. They got OC Brothers isolated on Jalen Gill out of the slot, and they ran him into a portion of the end zone that cut off the safety help. It was just a really well-designed play. That doesn't mean Purdue shouldn't have been better defensively. They were just bad in a lot of ways, but it came down to like a half a dozen snaps. If you just get off the field here and there, if you don't give up those 4 third and longs, if you give up 2 or 3, this game might have turned out differently. I don't really know what my point is here, but it just came down to third down, and it sucks for Purdue that they lost, but I thought there was some potential showed there today.
Yeah. Purdue or Fresno State 11 of 17, Purdue 2 of 12. Conversely, really struggled there. Mike, one of the things I also thought Purdue's disarray on the offensive line, injury driven, certainly Moosa not playing, a factor, and then what they had to make some changes there, and their inability to run the ball up the middle a couple of times. I thought Hudson Card was okay. I thought he had missed a couple chances to run the ball, but talk about not only your view, but also that line play, and whether that was that abhorrent to you, or was it just maybe I should have expected to have, my expectations were too high?
Well, it just looked like a line that hasn't played together.
Yeah.
And you've got a lot of newcomers there. You've got some injuries they're dealing with. And they've got to mesh up. You don't have time in college football to really generate a lot of chemistry there. And they've had a lot of guys out. You're missing Gus Hartwig, who was one of your better linemen.
Yeah.
And then Josh Kaltenberger, who got valuable experience last year. I just thought the line looked like a line that hasn't played together, and they didn't get any push together. I mean, when you run 6 plays from the 2-yard line and it takes you that long to get in the end zone, then you have some issues there. Now, I think they had some running success late in the game, in part because Mockabee made some plays. But the offensive line is a concern, I think, of getting these guys the chance to get to play together in a game. I know they played together in practice, and then you're rotating centers because of injuries and things like that. But and I think that hurt them on third down. Fresno did have 11 third downs, but as you mentioned, Purdue I think was 2 or 3 of 12.
2 of 12,
and they couldn't stay on the field, and that contributed to some of the defensive breakdowns just because you were on the field so much, and Fresno was able to take advantage of those situations.
Yeah, no question. Hudson Card, Tom, again, numbers 17 of 32, 154 yards. No, Purdue did not turn the ball over.
No.
Didn't have a normal amount of penalties, but certainly when you had a chance at 28-17 and I'm not sure all the whole sequence, but Freehill misses the field goal. Though Purdue was in a position to score a touch. I mean, they'd been able to go down the score a touchdown, might have really put this game in a very different light, like Brian said. But how did you view Hudson Card's performance? And maybe also, and again, don't know what the scheme was, don't know what they told him. I thought he missed a couple chances to really take off running that he didn't do. But anyway, how did you look at that?
Yeah, Brian asked Coach Walters about Hudson running it maybe, though. And, 6 carries for 29 yards. And we saw some of that athletic ability people had talked about. Maybe they want to be judicious, though, Alan, and they don't want to expose them too much to maybe get
Don't
them.
have any backups, really. I mean, that's the problem.
So he only hit 57% of his passes. I thought Hudson Card was okay.
Just okay. Yeah.
Nothing more, nothing less. I thought he was okay. On getting back real quick to the run game, the lack of physicality. Brian and I were talking, and Brian pointed out during the game, you got to know who you are, and we've seen this from Purdue for years. That inability to really get physical when you got to run the ball, when everybody in the stadium knows you want to run the ball. In the red zone, at the goal line, if it's 4th and inches or 3rd and 1 in midfield, wherever, Purdue just always struggles playing Big Ten football and trying to knuckle it and run you over. We saw it again. Mike talked about the sequence where they needed 6 or 7 runs from the 1 or the 2 yard line. And how about late in the game, guys? Fourth down from the 1 yard line, Purdue eschews the field goal, goes for it. Mockabee gets stuffed. That's when Thieneman made the interception and Purdue ended up scoring a touchdown. But still, just another example. It's kind of demoralizing. It's exasperating. It's got to be for the guys on the sideline, because it is for the fans. So that's not going to get cured anytime soon. Certainly not this year. The offensive line probably is what it is, guys. And they're going to have to try to figure out how to make things work with this offensive line. Jeff Brom found a way to still be effective. And I think these guys probably can too. So, yeah, Hudson Card, again, back to your original question, I thought he was okay. Devin Mockabee, I kind of wish they would have got him lubed up and going early on, guys. He was hard to use in the first half. We saw him get amped up a little bit in the second half. I think he had 60 yards, 20-yard run. He scored a touchdown. Why not lean on Mockabee a little bit more? Maybe they were trying to rotate all the backs early, it seemed like. And I get it. It's hot out. Well, what the heck, man? You got to win the game. And anyway, so there's that. And then finally, too, the special teams. Give you one more, at least a positive, the special teams, right? Yeah. I know the field goal, you can't miss that field goal. Come on, man. You can't miss that field goal. And but you have the kickoff return. You have the nice punt return as well. And shout out to Caleb Crockover, right? Did a good job kicking the ball off. So that was I think overall a positive with the special teams.
Yeah, I think how far was the field goal? Was it 42?
It was a 43-yard kick.
43 yards with left hand.
It was ideal conditions. There's no pressure. He had the snap, the whole.
And as Ryan Walters said, at least on radio post game, he's been making them all year, and he just didn't get it done at the time that they needed it to happen. Certainly from that was a big miss at a time, or at least you knew that could come back to haunt Purdue. All right, Brian, Purdue, I don't know. And I want a question for all three.
Yeah, I don't care what you ask me. I'm going to talk about something else.
All right.
Go ahead.
You went to the Ronald Reagan School of PR. Answer. All right. I wanted to ask you about all three of you to ask about. So make sure you work it into your answers, okay? Or we're going to kick you off this podcast. But no, air raid principles. I want to know what air raid principles got used today. Did I miss something? Or
well, that actually,
am I oblivious? So go ahead. You can say whatever you want, but talk.
Part of my point, Purdue didn't have an offensive rhythm today. It didn't have a bread and butter. It didn't have bread or butter. It either made big plays and scored, or it didn't do anything. I think I'm going to say the same thing about this Purdue offense now that I said about all of Jeff Brom's offenses, is that you have to get people off balance with your passing game and then run off of that. You can't just say, okay, we got 5 offensive linemen here. They're all going to push people, or they're all going to get out to their zone blocking assignments fast enough to open up this hole. That can work after you've gotten a defense on its heels with your passing game, made them worry about other stuff. Purdue never really, kind of had that kind of go-to ball control sort of identity today. They've got all season to kind of figure it out, but maybe Garrett Miller would have made a difference there. Maybe throwing the ball to running backs a little more out of the backfield. Maybe Tyrone Tracy becomes more of a factor there. I don't know, but they've got to get some just kind of go-to bread and butter sort of here's what we can do whenever we need to just get 5 yards and just keep the sticks moving forward. I thought the running game, I think, Hudson Card had some opportunities to keep it on some read option stuff. Maybe that's something they watch film and say, okay, I need to do a better job next week doing this. And maybe some of those 0-yard gains going up the middle with the quarter with the running back, that becomes all of a sudden a 7-yard gain where Hudson Card just basically takes off the corner.
Yeah, he missed a couple chances to do that today, I thought.
Yeah. Yes, he did. He also missed an opportunity to scramble there where he fanned it out to try to keep throwing when he could have just taken his 6 or 7 yards there. It was my sense during the game that they kind of don't want him in harm's way. But I asked Walters about that after the game, and he didn't seem to lend any validity to that theory. But they just need to, get some, sort of Kyle Orton to Taylor Stubblefield stuff, get some Aiden O'Connell to Charlie Jones stuff, just something you can just kind of hang your hat on and something that the defense has to worry about every single snap and kind of go from there in terms of your running game and whatnot. So what air raid principles did you see today? People hear about air raid and they assume it's bombs getting dropped on everybody. It's just big play, big play, big play. It's really not what it is. When you go back and watch Mike Leach offense, it was much more like what Joe Tiller did in terms of the short passing game and just almost an extension of the running game kind of thing. You just play with tempo and you just keep people keep throwing that same pass over and over again until they stop it, and then you play off it. And it was kind of that's kind of the opposite, I think, of what people perceive air raid to be. But this game today was that. It was Purdue either made a big play or didn't make any plays. If they could just hit those 6 yards, 6 yards, 6 yards, 7 yards, 40 yards, 3 yards, 5 yards on down the line, they would have won this game because they would have moved the chains. And if they had just moved the chains a little more, they would have won. And I'm not sure you saw a lot of, true air raid type of stuff today in that sense. Now, I don't know what Graham Harrell's version of air raid is. I can only, sit here and talk about what I saw today. But in terms of the air raid, it's not always big plays as much as it is just rhythm in the passing game. And I think you saw big plays, but no rhythm in the passing game today.
Yeah, I think that's true. Mr. Carmin, looking at that, and then also kind of looking at the perspective of all right, taking the long view. You got an opportunity in Blacksburg next week. We don't really know. We know Virginia Tech has struggled here of late. They play James Madison as we are recording this, but still ahead there for Purdue. But how do you view that? And just putting it, if you're Brian Walters, you got to put that in one game at a time, compartmentalizing, I assume.
Well, from an offensive standpoint, just trying to figure out what the identity of this team is going to be. I mean, you can have the air raid offense, you can have all that stuff, but what is this team going to be offensively? I mean, they are going to throw it, they are going to run it, but how's that going to look? And I think that's something that's still going to evolve. You would hope by the time you get to the end of the month here that you have that firmly in place, that you have those plays that you can go to keep the chains moving and things like that. I mean, this is still all new for everybody because you have new coaches, you have a new scheme, and you have new players. And until you get in the game, and as Mike Tyson said, once you get hit, you figure it out. So Purdue's going to have to.
Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face.
Right. Yeah. So what is Purdue's plan now that they got, sort of punched in the face by Fresno? But how does that offensive identity evolve now as you work through this month? It's still a very, very important month for Purdue because the back end of the schedule, and you need to pick up some wins here in September to make October meaningful and make November meaningful. But I just think it's going to take some time to figure this out. As Brian said, they were never in a rhythm. I thought they were awkward and clunky on offense. I mean, they just never established anything. But the question becomes, what were they trying to establish?
Yeah,
and I don't know if that's a question that Walters or Graham Harold would answer truthfully if pointed to them. I mean, what were they trying to do, and how much did they kind of shift that as the game went on? So they've got and then defensively, I still think I know that they're going to play man and you're going to have some missed tackles, but that's those issues in the secondary have been around Purdue for a while, and I just think you got to figure out a way to clean those up and make some plays in the back end, and it helps if you would get some more pressure from the front seven as well.
Yeah, 30 rushes, 30 passes was the thing, and the longest pass play to a receiver, 6 yards. Tom, last word.
Something to couch that in, though, is all of Hudson Card's rushing attempts, I think, were scrambles. So those would have been passes called.
Probably so, though. I think he had a couple. The one late in the game where he took off, but yeah, the one on 3rd and 10 or 2nd and 10 when he was 3rd and 10. But yeah, well said. That's true.
To me, balance is hard to figure out because you don't, because he scrambles, it's a run, but it was a pass play.
Right. And that's
it's so hard to define balance because I don't look at the yardage because that could be misleading. You try to look at the plays that are called, but again, you don't know if a pass was called here or a run was called here. Yeah, they want to be balanced. I get it, but it's hard for people on the outside to completely figure it out because you don't know what the play was called.
Well, to be truly balanced too, your bread and butter has to work.
Right.
You have to have something that you can play off. And that goes back to my point earlier. Purdue just didn't have bread or butter today. They just made a few big plays offensively, and that accounted for their majority of their productivity. Other than that, they just didn't really have anything to fall back on.
Maybe they get an identity next week at Virginia Tech, or at least take a step in that direction. I don't. If we see the same thing from a clunky and awkward standpoint offensively next week at Virginia Tech, then you have to. You don't raise a big question, but you start to see a trend develop that needs to get fixed in a hurry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Tom will give you the last word as we close this up, though. Virginia Tech next week, Blacksburg. Don't know really what the Hokies are like, and we know the program has struggled a little bit of late, but they've got new players as well, and it will be a big game for Purdue. As Mike had said, you want to continue, you want to try to take steps forward, but put that as you look at that game, and also just sum up the performance today.
Yeah, Brent Price trying to get the Hokies back on track after Justin Fuentes struggled to do it, and they have a new quarterback. Lane Stadium is one of the more raucous environments in college football, of course, with the Enter Sandman. It rocks the foundations of that stadium, a great fan base, a school that's a lot like Purdue. But more importantly, guys, here we are. At least I talked about the importance of September for months now. And I was thinking Purdue's got to be 3-2 in this month if it wants a good chance to make a bowl. Now you're 0-1. You're staring at the possibility of being 0-2. Mike and I talked after the game about point spreads next week, and I think we didn't agree Purdue's going to be an underdog, right?
Yeah, I would think.
Underdog. So here we are. Their backs are already up against the wall, and you got to come home to play three kind of tough teams: Syracuse, Wisconsin, and Illinois. You don't want to come home 0-2. So here we are, and that brings me to adversity, right? Ryan Walters talked about adversity in the post game. He's talked about it before in the lead up. How are they going to respond to adversity? Well, they got a big heap of helping of adversity right now sitting on their lap. How are they going to respond? So I'm really eager to see. We hear so many times from coaches, well, we make our biggest improvement from game 1 to game 2. And I'm sure there's a lot of truth to that. So we'll see, right? We'll see. Big opportunity for Purdue that can really make a lot of amends. They come home with the W, obviously, at 1-1. So, yeah, I'm eager to see how the offense and defense evolve from what we saw today.
All right, good storyline. It'll be interesting to see what happens, and we'll be back next week with our Saturday simulcast, probably around the same time with a noon start. We'll be getting Mr. Dienhart in the press box at Lane Stadium. Also want to remind folks again to think about subscribing to goldenblack.com, a whole host of content. Sunday will be a busy day with lots of stuff and analysis of this game. And then, of course, throughout the course of the week, as we head into week 2, Brian will have has always been throwing in some basketball, to say the least, as Purdue inches its way towards the start of practice as well. It's September 26th, I think, is when Matt Painter's crew gets going. So everybody have a great week. Thanks to the Union Club Hotel. And gentlemen, have a good rest of your evening. Thanks to all of you for watching and listening, and also checking out our site. We appreciate that. So we'll see you next week on our Saturday simulcast. And until then, be safe and well. Take care.